Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of What the FinTech, the podcast from the team behind Fintech Futures and the Banking Technology magazine. My name is Paul Hindle, editor at Fintech Futures, and for this episode we're joined by Sonali Divilek, head of digital at Chase. Sonali, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's great to have you here. And just to get started, we'd like to quickly let us know a bit more about yourself then and the work you're doing at Chase.
Yeah. So at Chase, I lead our digital product organization. We're responsible for the Chase mobile app, as well as chase.com and our authenticated site. And we serve over 60 million digitally active customers.
Excellent. Sounds great. And again, great to have you here. And thanks so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. On the show this week, we'll be taking a look at how consumer attitudes towards digital banking in the US have evolved in recent years, with more and more people relying on their mobile phones for their banking needs. In particular, we'll take a look at some of the key consumer trends highlighted in Chase's recent digital banking attitude study and the factors behind these, as well as how banks can respond to these shifting consumer demands and tap new technologies to ensure their digital channels are meeting the wants and needs of their customers. We'll also hear more about the work Chase has been doing in this area, as well as how the bank has been looking to strike a balance between digital and physical banking. That's all to come a bit later, but as always, we will open with our news in numbers segment. So this is where our guest has gone out and found a news story featuring an interesting number to discuss and get us started. So, Sonali, what have you brought along for us today?
My news in numbers, one thing I found surprising, 86% of consumers said they prefer to use one app for all their banking. And what that says to me as someone who's constantly looking at our customer attitudes towards the banking app is just how much more useful and productive we need to make that app for each individual consumer that we have.
Interesting. Yeah. So this is a statistic taken from Chase's digital banking attitude survey then. 86% sizable majority of customers. So is the future pointing towards these financial super apps almost then that can do it all? And what are the challenges then when it comes to building out these platforms to include all of this functionality?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think what's required when you actually have so many services that you can offer a customer is to really be able to personalize the experience. And the great thing about digital is more and more we're able to personalize at scale. And so part of making banking app useful is making sure that the job the customer wants to do is right there at their fingertips. And also making sure that, maybe those relevant services they hadn't thought about are presented to them because there's a lot we know about them and a lot we know they can take advantage of. And so that's really a theme in terms of how we think about how we're evolving our mobile app and our digital experience.
I mean, on that front then as well, knowing that the majority of consumers want to use just the one app for all of their banking needs, and how should banks be approaching their digital banking strategy?
I think what you have to do is really continue to experiment and iterate with your customers. So you'll have a set of services. You probably know the target audience and who those services are most useful for. And so you really let customers decide by presenting to them in the interface, seeing what jives, maybe how you might need to present them, and then continuing to really just try out different things. I think we have seen with the massive amount of experimentation that we've done within our digital experience, sometimes there is a counterintuitive result, or there's a feature that when presented in the right context becomes so much more useful. And so I think that kind of constant evolution that you can do in digital, it is really, whether you're banking or in another industry, is the right approach.
We mentioned briefly at the start of the podcast, and so this year Chase has completed the fourth edition of its digital banking attitude study. Can you tell us what the key findings were from that study then, and how US consumers' attitudes towards mobile banking have shifted in recent years, maybe since the first iteration of that survey?
No surprises, probably what all of the listeners are experiencing. People are just doing more banking from their phones, doing more of many jobs from their phones. And what we found was really interesting is they are using their banking app for things beyond just banking. They're redeeming rewards. They're looking at different travel options. And so as long as it's there to explore, they are actually engaging. Personally, for us, mobile banking usage continues to climb. So our mobile active users grew by 10% in 2023. And we've also seen a lot of great engagement with financial tools, right? Tools that tell you how you're spending, where you're spending, and just opportunities for you to maybe think about that spending and manage to your budget.
Excellent. What would you say that US customers are particularly looking for when it comes to the relationship with their banks at the moment, maybe in terms of the products and services as well? What trends are you seeing there?
So we are seeing customers look for those personalized financial insights and those tools that help them manage their finances and improve their financial health. We have some interesting tools at Chase to offer. We have about 7 million customers engaging with our snapshot feature each month. So those are kind of these bite-sized personalized financial insights that give you a little sneak peek into how you're spending or opportunities you have. And so we are continuing to develop more data-driven insights and visualizations to help customers in that realm.
Excellent. And we are hearing a lot about personalization in banking services right now. I mean, where would you say that ranks for customers then in terms of importance right now when it comes to choosing who to bank with?
Yeah. So no doubt customers want to know that the basics are easy to get done. I want to pay someone, I want to get paid, etc. But I would say what really rises to the top in this day and age is safety, security, and just knowing that the institution is really protecting them. And so while mobile and banking engagement is growing, we do see that what's resonating with customers is if they have a problem they can't solve digitally or it is something more complex, actually having a person to talk to or being able to go into a branch gives them more of that reassurance. And they are choosing banks that have both. There are a bunch of digital-only banks that are emerging out there, but I would say at Chase, we see that having kind of both options, online and offline, is a real boon for us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess unsurprisingly as well, given some of the macroeconomic factors at the moment, there's more activity around financial health tools like credit monitoring, budgeting, savings features. How have you looked to adapt there and help customers during these tough times?
We built this really incredible tool called Score Planner just recently. And what it does is it helps customers improve their credit score with a real personalized, attainable plan based on that unique customer's credit report in a time frame that works best to them. So you go on the app, we understand kind of your inputs, and we're able to actually show you how you can improve your credit score. So interestingly, we've already created with our customers 3.1 million score plans done by 2.6 million customers. So customers actually keep coming back. 1 million of those customers have actually completed a plan and achieved their improvement goal. And the average credit score increase for those who completed a plan was over 30 points, which is huge. 30-point swings can make all the difference between being able to apply for credit or secure a mortgage. And so really looking at the financial health improvements we can make for our customers has been a guiding principle as we build these tools.
Excellent. And I mean, obviously, you mentioned it briefly at the start of the show, but given the rise of new fintechs and neobanks now, and these shifting customer demands, how much of a challenge is retaining customers these days for large institutions? How have you looked to approach your digital strategy then at Chase to fend off competition to avoid losing any customer share?
Yeah, at Chase, I think we're setting ourselves apart by striving to make it easy to do business with us, both online and offline, and actually across channels. So being able to recognize the activity you've done online when you do come into a branch. So we have those strategies working very much hand in hand. And so we want the things that are really easy to do to be able to be done in the digital experience. But we know when a customer is at a turning point in their lives or they have some sort of a life event, the branches are really there. And I will tell you, we have a saying at Chase, everyone benefits from the branches. Interestingly enough, we have even more digital penetration in the locations where we have branch activity. And so we really have seen in the data that the online, offline interaction is really a competitive differentiator.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on that front as well, I mean, we recently had the news that Chase is planning to open up 500 new branches by 2027 to provide greater access to banking as well. In the UK, I mean, a lot of the bigger players are announcing branch closures due to the growing prevalence for mobile banking now. How difficult is it striking that balance between kind of physical branches and mobile banking? And is the strategy that Chase then to keep building on both fronts?
It absolutely is. And we've seen the data that tells us we will continue to invest in branches. So we're so excited about that announcement. We're opening more than 500 new branches. We're renovating almost 1,700 locations and hiring 3,500 employees over the next 3 years to provide better access to banking. And really, I think what's the key there is to make sure that your digital strategies, your mobile strategies work hand in hand with the branch, that information is passed from the online channels to the offline channels and vice versa. So a customer really feels like they're dealing with Chase. We know them, whether that's in person or on their phone.
With how quickly digital acceleration has been progressing over recent years and with the rise of new digitally native challenges, just how difficult is it for larger banks like Chase to keep up with this change given their size and potential hurdles such as legacy systems?
Yeah, I will tell you, you do have to stay current with technology. We have been on a huge modernization journey for the last couple of years, moving a lot of systems to the cloud, changing how we build products, and doing a lot of work to be able to create the frameworks, the systems, processes that give us the opportunity to innovate and move faster. I mentioned a little bit earlier about our experimentation practice, having the technical stack to really be able to innovate and iterate very quickly in response to how customers are behaving has been key. And so, what I would say more broadly, and proud to be at Chase where we're making that investment, is you do have to invest in your technology to be able to keep up with the expectations of consumers these days.
And are there any new technology developments or digital use cases that you're seeing in the banking space at the moment that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, I will tell you the personalization trend and sort of what can be done in terms of looking at large amounts of data and being able to use that to reflect back to customers what's most important to them, options that they have. That is really key. And I would say the technological advances, whether it's AI or it's machine learning, have really enabled us to do that at scale.
And moving back to the customer side as well, I mean, a lot of climate conscious consumers these days are choosing to bank with firms who more closely share their sustainability principles as well. How important are these factors for banks to consider now, and what kind of moves has Chase made in this area to attract these customers?
So our firm invests in the communities we serve and support a lot of those, where we've built these amazing community branches. And we have a far-ranging commitment to sustainability. JP Morgan Chase is targeting more than $2.5 trillion over 10 years to address long-term solutions that specifically address climate change and contribute to sustainable development. And that even includes a $1 trillion to support green initiatives that advance renewable energy and other innovative technologies. So I think we have found that supporting our communities, where our customers are, building that trust, focusing on what our communities are also really passionate about, helps to really build that trusting relationship with our customers.
And you mentioned briefly at the start of the show as well that importance of safety as well, and consumers wanting to feel safe with their banking providers. With some of the big leaps being made in AI and especially deepfakes as well these days, how much an issue is AI fraud becoming now in financial services in particular, and how have you been looking to tackle that and keep consumers protected?
I will say just full stop, safety and security are job number one when it comes to banking. And so we're always working to protect our customers, making sure our authentication is frictionless, but absolutely safety is paramount and making sure that we're dealing with real customers. And we're actually doing a lot, both in terms of education and technology, to protect them from the sophisticated fraud that we see that's out there, make them aware of potential kind of fraudulent activity on their accounts. And we also inform them about the latest tactics we're seeing from scammers. The scammers are relentless. And so we have teams of people that are looking out for our customers, making sure that we're able to actually protect them and their money.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the US in particular, I mean, obviously a very large country, a lot of areas that are quite remote. I mean, what challenges does that present for banks then to ensure financial inclusion in these areas? And are you seeing an uptick in customers adopting digital banking in more remote regions as well?
We do see customers adopting digital banking, but as I mentioned before, our branch strategy is built so we can serve as many communities as possible. We have virtual branches, community branches, as I mentioned. And so our digital experience is really meant to complement that branch strategy, even if it's a virtual branch strategy. And so we do really look to make sure we can serve all customers regardless of where they are.
Excellent. And just to finish off then, I mean, are there any developments in the pipeline at Chase then at the moment you can tell us about as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably hit on it a few times, but definitely more personalization, evolving experiences, bringing in things like travel and benefits and dining, really products that are adjacent to banking, but quite connected, and just making sure we're serving that up in the digital experience in a really seamless way.
Thanks again, Sonali, for chatting with us today. And to close out the podcast, we have our now infamous Fintech Jail. So this is where we ask for an industry term, buzzword, or trend that you've seen or heard enough of. Or, of course, you can advocate to free one of the previously incarcerated terms as well. So what would your selection be for this week?
So I am going to free the word omni-channel, just going back to that point that I do think online and offline work hand in hand, and making sure that you're connecting those experiences. So whether you're looking at a screen on your phone, or you're actually speaking to an agent, or you're going into a branch, that you're served consistently and with full context is really important. And so I'm going to break omni-channel out of jail.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I think over the course of the show, you've made a good argument to release omnichannel from the jail. I think it was one of those words that's been thrown around a lot over the last few years, and maybe overusage is what it got it landed into the jail in the first place. But yeah, it's been some time now, so hopefully we can let it out. It's been rehabilitated and ready to step back into the spotlight. So I'm happy to let this one back out of the jail now. But thank you so much again, Sonali, for joining us for the podcast today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's all we have time for this episode. Thanks, of course, to Sonali for joining me. As for Fintech Futures, you can find us online at fintechfutures.com, on X at Fintech Futures, and of course on LinkedIn. If you like this podcast and our other episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcasting service to get notified about future episodes. Thanks as well to Arama for editing this podcast. You can check them out at arama.tv. As always, thank you very much for your support. We'll see you soon for another episode of What the FinTech, but until then, goodbye.